The wine bottle shattered against the stone floor. Deborah jumped back, her heart racing as Taewoo cornered her in the cellar. Did he tell you he loves you? His voice was rough, jealous. Nothing like the gentle man who'd held her last week. Did my brother whisper pretty promises while he touched you? I don't know what you're talking about. Her back hit the wall.
Don't lie to me, Deborah.
Don't lie to me, Deborah.
I can smell on you.
I can
see it in the way you look at me. Like you're trying to figure out which one I am.
Like you're trying to figure out which one I am. The truth slammed into her chest. You knew. This whole time you both knew. Of course we knew. He leaned closer, his hand pressing against the wall beside her head. The real question is, when did you figure it out? Her hand cracked across his face before she could stop herself. The slap echoed in the cellar. Taewoo's head turned slowly back to face her, a red mark blooming on his cheek, something fierce and approving in his eyes. There she is. The woman who's been driving us both insane. I'm not a toy for you and your brother to share. No, he agreed, his thumb brushing her trembling lip. You're so much more dangerous than that. Hello besties, Happy New Year. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories. Please like, share and subscribe. Also turn on the notification button so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. 3 weeks earlier, the first time Deborah saw him, she was on her knees scrubbing marble floors in the east corridor of the Park Estate. The mansion sprawled across 3 acres in the heart of Gangnam. All glass walls and imported Italian marble, the kind of wealth that didn't announce itself because it didn't need to. She was one of 14 housekeepers employed by the Park family, a name spoken in whispers and careful tones throughout Seoul's underground circles. Deborah had come to Korea 2 years ago chasing a teaching position that evaporated the moment she arrived. Her savings ran out within months, and desperation led her to domestic work. The Park Estate paid well, better than anywhere else, but the rules were strict and the atmosphere suffocating. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look the family in the eye. Don't ask questions about the men in dark suits who visited at odd hours. Don't wonder about the rooms that stayed locked or the conversations that ended abruptly when staff entered. That morning, the head housekeeper, Mrs. Kong, had been particularly cruel. The older woman's pinched face hovered over Deborah as she inspected the floors with white-gloved hands. You miss spots. Again. Do you think this is acceptable work? No, ma'am. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't clean floors. Start over. All of it. And if I see one single streak, you'll scrub every bathroom in this house tonight instead of sleeping. Deborah bit back tears and started again, her knees aching against the cold marble. That's when she heard footsteps, expensive leather shoes on stone. She kept her head down, hands moving in steady circles with her cloth. Rule number 1, never look the family in the eye, especially not the sons. The 2 Park brothers were notorious among the staff, though no one would say exactly why, just whispered warnings and knowing looks. The footsteps stopped directly beside her. She held her breath, praying whoever it was would move on. Instead, a quiet voice spoke. Stand up, please. The tone was gentle but carried unmistakable authority. Deborah hesitated, her heart hammering. Please, he repeated. Slowly she stood, keeping her eyes lowered on his chest. A crisp white shirt, expensive, custom-tailored. Look at me. This was a test. It had to be. Some cruel game to see if she'd break the rules, give them a reason to fire her. But something in his voice made her obey despite her fear. She lifted her gaze. Dark eyes met hers, sharp features that could have been carved from stone except for an unexpected softness in his expression. He was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous, the kind of face that launched wars in ancient stories. Mid-20s, she guessed, with that particular brand of confidence that came from never having to question your place in the world. What's your name? He asked. She swallowed hard. Deborah, sir. Deborah. He repeated it carefully, like he was tasting the syllables, trying to understand how her name felt in his mouth. You're new here. 6 months, sir. He nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. Then he did something that made her breath catch. He shrugged off his coat, a long black cashmere that probably cost more than she made in 3 months, and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was still warm from his body, carrying the scent of expensive cologne, and something else she couldn't name. Safety, maybe. Or possession. You're cold, he said simply. She was. The estate was always cold, the air conditioning running year-round to protect the art and antiques. But no one had ever noticed before. No one had ever cared. I can't accept this, sir. Keep it until your shift ends. He stepped back, creating distance between them. Mrs. Kong shouldn't have made you start over. The floors were fine. Before Deborah could respond, he walked away, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. She stood there wrapped in his coat, her mind reeling. Who was he? Why had he been kind? What did he want? Because men like him didn't notice women like her unless they wanted something. That was a lesson she'd learned the hard way in her first months in Seoul. She didn't see him again for 4 days, but she thought about him constantly. About the way he'd looked at her, like she was a person instead of furniture. Like her name mattered. She'd returned the coat, of course, left it folded outside what she'd been told was his room because she didn't dare knock. But the memory of his kindness stayed with her. A dangerous warmth in her chest that she tried and failed to extinguish. On the 5th day, she was sent to clean the library. It was her favorite assignment, a massive room lined floor to ceiling with books in Korean, English, Chinese, and languages she couldn't identify. The smell of old paper and leather soothed something in her soul. She'd been an avid reader before life got hard, before survival took all her energy. She was dusting the upper shelves, balanced on a ladder, when she heard the door open behind her. Her hands stilled. Deborah. That voice again. She climbed down quickly, nearly stumbling on the last step. He was sitting in one of the leather chairs by the window, a book open in his lap. He looked tired, she realized. Tired in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep, and everything to do with the weight he carried. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was here. I can come back later. Stay. That word again. It did something to her nervous system, made her freeze in place even as every instinct screamed to run. He set the book aside and stood, walking toward her with that same quiet confidence. Do you like books, Deborah? Yes. I used to read a lot. Before. She stopped herself. Before what? Before life got hard? Before she became too tired to dream? Before she realized that stories about girls like her didn't end happily? He pulled a book from the shelf behind her. Something with a worn spine and pages soft from repeated reading. Try this one. She took it carefully, reverently. A novel. American. Something about second chances and finding home in unexpected places. Thank you, sir. His hand brushed hers as he let go of the book. Just barely. But the touch sent electricity through her entire body, made her breath catch and her skin tingle. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. Then, almost as an afterthought. You can come here whenever you want. No one uses this room except me. It felt like an invitation to something more than reading. It felt like the beginning of something she shouldn't want but desperately did. God help her, she did. Over the next 2 weeks, Deborah found excuses to be near the library. She'd volunteer for assignments in that wing, time her breaks to coincide with the hours he might be there. Sometimes he was. Sometimes he wasn't. But when he was, they'd talk. Small conversations at first. What are you reading? Do you miss home? What brought you to Korea? He never told her his name. She never asked. It felt safer that way, like if they didn't put labels on whatever this was, it couldn't become real, couldn't become dangerous. But it was already dangerous. She was falling, sliding down a slope she couldn't climb back up. And the worst part was she didn't want to stop. 3 weeks after their first meeting, he appeared at her door late at night. The staff quarters were in a separate building behind the main house, small rooms barely big enough for a bed and dresser. Deborah had been reading the book he'd given her, trying to lose herself in someone else's story to forget her own complicated feelings. The knock was soft. 3 taps. She knew immediately who it was, though she couldn't explain how. She opened the door in her sleep clothes, an oversized t-shirt and cotton shorts. He stood in the hallway, still dressed in his day clothes but looking somehow vulnerable in the dim light. I shouldn't be here, he said quietly. I know. If anyone finds out. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. I can't stop thinking about you. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Deborah's heart hammered against her ribs. You should go. I should. But he didn't move. And she didn't close the door. Tell me to leave, he whispered. If you want me to leave, just say it. She should. She knew she should. This could only end badly for her. He was Park family, untouchable. existing in a world she could never access. She was the help. Disposable. Replaceable. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, stay. He stepped inside and she closed the door behind him, sealing them both into this beautiful, terrible decision. They didn't speak much that night. His hands found her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones like he was memorizing her features. When he kissed her, it was gentle, questioning, giving her every opportunity to stop this before it went too far. She didn't stop it. She pulled him closer, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his like she could somehow merge them into one person. He touched her like she was something precious, something breakable. His kisses were soft and searching, his hands careful and reverent. Tell me if you want to stop, he whispered against her skin. At any point, just tell me. Don't stop. Her voice was breathless, desperate. Please don't stop. And he didn't. He undressed her slowly, kissing every inch of exposed skin. When they finally came together, when he was inside her and they were moving as one, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like something she'd been waiting for without knowing it. Afterward, they lay tangled together in her small bed, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. This doesn't change anything, he whispered into her hair. In the morning we go back to being strangers. Her heart broke a little. I understand. But she didn't. She didn't understand how something that felt this real, this right, could be pretend. She didn't understand how she could give herself to someone so completely, and then act like it never happened. He left before dawn, pressing his forehead to hers at the door. I'm sorry, he said, though she didn't know what he was apologizing for. For coming? For leaving? For making her feel things she shouldn't? The next 3 days were torture. She saw him at meals, serving food while he sat with his family, their eyes never meeting. She passed him in hallways, pressing herself against the wall to let him pass. His expensive cologne washing over her like a memory. She cleaned rooms near his office, hearing his voice through closed doors, conducting business in Korean too rapid for her to follow. She told herself it was over. One night, that's all it was. A moment of weakness they'd both regret. She should be grateful it ended before real damage was done. Then, on the 4th day, someone pulled her into an empty storage room as she carried fresh linens through the west wing. Her heart leapt. Him. It had to be him. I couldn't stay away, he said, his voice rough with need. Relief flooded through her so intensely she felt lightheaded. I thought you changed your mind. He frowned slightly, his hands on her waist. About what? About this. About us. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, maybe. But then it was gone, replaced by something darker, more intense. I don't change my mind, Deborah. Then he kissed her and it felt different. His touch was more demanding, more possessive, less careful than before. She told herself it was just nerves, that he'd been cautious the first time and now felt more comfortable. But when his hands moved over her body, mapping her curves with an urgency that bordered on desperate, doubt crept in. Small things. The way he tilted her chin up to kiss her throat, something the other version of him hadn't done. The way his fingers dug into her hips, leaving marks she'd find later. The way he whispered her name like a prayer and a curse combined. Wait, she said, pulling back slightly. Are you okay? You seem different. Different how? His eyes were dark, pupils blown wide. I don't know. Just different. He smiled, something sharp and knowing in the expression. Maybe you're just getting to know me better. That should have been her first clue. But she was already in too deep, already drowning in feelings she couldn't name. So she kissed him back and ignored the warning bells in her mind. This became their pattern. Stolen moments in empty rooms, hurried encounters in the dead of night. Sometimes he was gentle, thoughtful, the man who brought her books and spoke softly. Other times he was intense, demanding, the man who touched her like he was trying to memorize her body through sheer force of will. Deborah told herself people were complicated, that everyone had different moods, that she was lucky to have any part of him at all. The other maids started to notice something. You look different lately, her roommate Sophie said one morning as they prepared for the day. Happier. Did something good happen? Just sleeping better, Deborah lied. But Sophie's eyes were knowing. Be careful, Deborah. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're seeing, just be careful. This house has rules for a reason. I'm not seeing anyone. Sure. Sophie didn't sound convinced. Just remember, girls like us don't end up with happy endings here. We end up replaced. The words haunted Deborah for days. But not enough to make her stop. Not enough to protect her heart. It was the scar that should have told her everything. 6 weeks into whatever this was, she was lying in bed with him after another late-night encounter. His arm was around her waist, his breath warm against her neck. She was tracing absent patterns on his chest when her fingers brushed his wrist. She frowned, her eyes opening. A scar. Thin, pale, running along the inside of his left wrist like a faded memory. Her breath caught. Wait. She'd been with him, how many times now? 8. 10. She'd memorized his body in the darkness, knew the feel of his skin, the sound of his breathing. But she'd never seen this scar before. Her heart started racing as realization crept in. Cold and sharp and impossible to ignore. Hey. His voice broke through her thoughts. What's wrong? She looked up at his face. The same face she'd kissed dozens of times. The same dark eyes that watched her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. But that scar. Nothing, she lied, her voice barely steady. I should probably get some sleep. Early shift tomorrow. He studied her for a moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then he nodded and started to dress. At the door he paused. Deborah? Yeah. You know you can trust me, right? The question felt loaded, heavy with meaning she didn't understand. Of course. He left, and she lay in the darkness, her mind racing. The scar. When had he gotten it? Why hadn't she noticed before? Unless. No. That was crazy. Impossible. But the doubt had been planted, and it grew roots in her mind, spreading and tangling until she couldn't think of anything else. 2 days later, everything came crashing down in the wine cellar. Mrs. Kong had sent her to retrieve a specific vintage for dinner, a task that required descending into the deepest, oldest part of the estate. The cellar was all stone walls and dim lighting, rows of bottles dating back decades. Deborah was searching the far wall when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, expecting Mrs. Kong come to criticize her slowness. Instead, she found him. Except the look in his eyes was wrong. Too intense. Too angry. Did he tell you he loves you? His voice was rough, nothing like the gentle tone she'd grown used to. What? Deborah's back hit the wine rack. My brother. He moved closer, predatory. Did Jinwoo tell you he loves you? Did he whisper pretty promises while he touched you? The world tilted. Brother. Jinwoo. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Deborah. He was close now, too close. I can smell him on you. I can see it in the way you look at me, like you're trying to figure out which one I am. The truth slammed into her chest, stealing her breath. You knew. This whole time, you both knew. Of course we knew. His hand pressed against the wall beside her head, caging her in. The real question is, when did you figure it out? Her hand moved before her brain could stop it, cracking across his face with a sound that echoed off the stone walls. The slap left a red mark blooming on his cheek, but instead of anger, something like approval flashed in his eyes. There she is, he said softly. The woman who's been driving us both insane. I'm not a toy for you and your brother to share. Her voice shook with fury and hurt, and something that felt dangerously close to heartbreak. No, he agreed, his thumb brushing her trembling lip. You're so much more dangerous than that. You're the thing Jinwoo and I have never fought over before. The thing that might actually break us. Who are you? The question came out as a whisper. Tae-woo. He stepped back, giving her space. And before you ask, yes, Jinwoo and I are twins. Identical. And yes, you've been with both of us. And no, we didn't plan it. He paused. At least not at first. Deborah's legs nearly gave out. She pressed her hands against the stone wall to stay upright. Not at first? What does that mean? It means I saw you with him. Saw the way he looked at you. The way you looked at him. Tae-woo's voice was quiet now, almost vulnerable. And I got jealous. So I went to you one night, and you didn't realize I wasn't Jinwoo. And I let you believe it because I wanted to know what it felt like. To be chosen by you. The confession hung between them, ugly and honest. Deborah felt bile rise in her throat. You lied to me. Yes. You let me think, her voice cracked. You let me fall for both of you without knowing. Yes. No excuses. No justifications. Does Jinwoo know? That you've been. She couldn't finish the sentence. He figured it out 2 weeks ago. TVS you've clenched. We've been fighting about it ever since. About you. About what to do. About who gets to. He stopped himself. Who gets to what? Keep me. Anger surged through her shock. I'm not property. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you and your brother have been playing games with my life, my feelings, my body, like I'm some kind of toy you're fighting over. You're right. Taewoo's voice was raw. You're absolutely right. What we did was unforgivable. But Deborah, I need you to understand something. What could you possibly say that would make this okay? Nothing. Nothing makes this okay. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. But I need you to know that what I feel for you is real. Not a game. Not a competition with my brother. Real. Deborah laughed, bitter and broken. How can anything between us be real when it's built on lies? Before Taewoo could answer, the cellar door opened. Jinwoo stood at the top of the stairs, his expression a mixture of fury and devastation. Get away from her. Taewoo didn't move. We were just talking. I said get away from her. Jinwoo descended the stairs, his movements controlled but barely. You've done enough damage. I've done damage? Taewoo's voice rose. You're the one who started this. You're the one who went to her first, knowing exactly what kind of situation you were creating. I didn't know you'd. Jinwoo stopped in front of them, his hands clenched into fists. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Actually go to her and pretend to be me. Why not? You never tell me anything anymore. You keep secrets. You disappear for hours. You think I'm stupid? You think I wouldn't notice? They were talking about her like she wasn't there. Fighting over her like she was a prize instead of a person. Something inside Deborah snapped. Stop. Her voice cut through their argument. Both of you, just stop. The brothers turned to her, identical faces showing different expressions. Jinwoo looked devastated. Taewoo looked defiant. I need to know something, Deborah said, her voice surprisingly steady. And I need the truth. All of it. No more lies. Anything, Jinwoo said immediately. She looked between them. How long has this been going on? How many times was I with each of you? Silence. Heavy. Damning. Answer me, she demanded. Jinwoo spoke first. I was the first one. In the library. The coat. That was me. And the first night in your room, that was me. But after that, he glanced at his brother. I'm not sure. 6 times, Taewoo said quietly. You were with me 6 times. Jinwoo has been with you 7. 13 encounters. 13 times she'd given herself to a man she'd thought she was falling in love with. Except it wasn't one man. It was 2. I think I'm going to be sick, she whispered. Jinwoo reached for her. Deborah, please. Don't touch me. She jerked away from both of them. Don't either of you ever touch me again. She pushed past them and ran up the stairs, their voices calling after her. She didn't stop. Didn't slow down until she was locked in her room, her back against the door, her whole body shaking. How had she been so blind? How had she not seen it? Different touches. Different ways of speaking. The scar that appeared and disappeared. All the signs had been there. And she'd ignored them because she'd wanted so badly to believe in something beautiful. If you're watching this and your heart is breaking for Deborah right now, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because if you don't, you'll miss what happens next, and trust me, you'll regret it. Deborah's story is far from over, and the next part will leave you speechless. Don't let yourself miss it. Subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds, and it means the world to me. Plus, you'll be joining thousands of other viewers who are just as invested in these characters as you are. Don't be the one who misses out. Deborah didn't sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, trying to separate Jinwoo from Taewoo in her memories, trying to understand how she'd been so spectacularly fooled. The worst part wasn't the deception itself. The worst part was that even now, even knowing the truth, her heart still raced when she thought about them. Both of them. The gentle one who'd given her books. The intense one who'd touched her like he was drowning and she was air. She'd fallen for both of them. And that made her feel weak and stupid and utterly lost. When dawn finally broke, she dragged herself out of bed and got ready for work. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but she covered the damage with cold water and determination. She would avoid them. She would keep her head down. She would survive this like she'd survived everything else life had thrown at her. Avoiding the twins proved impossible. The park estate was massive, but somehow they were everywhere. Jin-woo in the library when she tried to return the book he'd given her. Tae-woo in the hallway when she carried fresh linens. Both of them in the dining room when she served breakfast, their eyes tracking her movements. They didn't speak to her, didn't acknowledge her beyond brief glances that felt like physical touches, but their presence was suffocating, a constant reminder of her own foolishness. The other staff noticed. "You look exhausted," Sophie said during their lunch break. "Are you feeling all right?" "Just tired," Deborah lied, pushing rice around her plate without eating. "You haven't been yourself lately. If something's wrong, you can talk to me." But how could she explain? How could she tell anyone what had happened without sounding insane? "I fell in love with a man who turned out to be two men, and they both lied to me." No one would believe her. Or worse, they would, and she'd be fired for getting involved with the family. "I'm fine," she said. "Really?" Sophie didn't look convinced, but she dropped it. That afternoon, Mrs. Kong pulled Deborah aside after inspection. The head housekeeper's pinched face was more severe than usual. "You've been distracted lately. Careless. If your work doesn't improve, there will be consequences." "Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't meet our standards." Mrs. Kang's eyes narrowed. "And stay away from the family. I've seen the way you look at them. It's inappropriate." Heat flooded Deborah's face. Don't lie to me, girl. I've worked in this house for 30 years. I know when staff start getting ideas above their station." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Let me tell you what happened to the last maid who caught the young master's attention." Deborah's stomach dropped. "What?" "Her name was Jiun. Beautiful girl. Korean. Same age as you. 5 years ago, she started cleaning the West Wing where the brothers' rooms were. Within a month, I noticed the signs. The flushed cheeks. The distracted looks. The way she'd volunteer for assignments near their quarters." Mrs. Kang's expression hardened. "One morning, she was here. The next, she was gone. No gudvie. No explanation. Just disappeared. The master paid her off, sent her away. Made sure she understood that someone like her had no place in this family." The story settled like stones in Deborah's stomach. Did they hurt her? The brothers? No. They're not violent men, despite what their business might suggest. But their father? Mrs. Kang's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "He protects this family's reputation at any cost. And you, a foreign maid, a black woman in a house that values traditional Korean bloodlines? You'd be eliminated before you became a problem." "I'm not trying to be a problem." "Then keep your distance. Whatever you think is happening between you and them, it can't end well. Not for you." Mrs. Kong straightened. "I'm telling you this as a warning, not a threat. Be smart, Deborah. Girls like us don't end up with happy endings in houses like this." The words echoed Sophie's warning, and they haunted Deborah for the rest of the day. But staying away from the brothers proved more difficult than she'd imagined, because 3 days after the wine cellar confrontation, Jin-woo found her alone in the garden. She'd been pulling weeds, a task usually reserved for the groundskeeper, but she'd volunteered. Anything to keep busy. Anything to stop her hands from shaking and her mind from spiraling. "Deborah." His voice made her freeze, her fingers still buried in the soil. She didn't turn around. "I'm working." "I know." He moved closer. She could feel him behind her, could feel the weight of his presence. "I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain. You lied. Both of you." "I didn't lie." His voice was quiet, pained. "I just didn't tell you the whole truth." She laughed bitterly, still not turning to face him. "That's the same thing." "No, it's not." He knelt beside her in the dirt, not caring that his expensive suit would get ruined. "If I'd told you I had a twin brother, would you have believed me? Would you have trusted me?" Finally, she looked at him. His eyes were sincere, desperate even. Red-rimmed like he hadn't been sleeping either. "I would have had a choice. You took that from me." Something flickered across his face. Guilt maybe. Regret. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry. God, Deborah, I'm so sorry." She wanted to stay angry, wanted to keep her walls up and her heart protected. But the way he looked at her, like she was the only thing that mattered, made her defenses crack. Why didn't you tell me? After the first time? After the second? Why keep lying? Jinwoo's jaw tightened. Because I was selfish. Because the thought of sharing you, even with my own brother, made me sick. Because I wanted you to be mine and mine alone. The honesty in his words hit harder than any lie could have. But I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. You could be. His hand reached for hers, stopping just short of touching. You could be mine, Deborah. If you'd let me prove it to you. Her heart stuttered dangerously. Jinwoo. I know it's complicated. I know Taewoo feels the same way I do. I know this is impossible. His words came faster now, desperate. But I can't just walk away from you. I can't pretend this never happened. She pulled her hand back, standing up. You're going to have to. Deborah, please. Just leave me alone. Both of you. She closed her eyes against the tears threatening to fall. Please. When she opened them again, he was still kneeling in the dirt, watching her with an expression that looked like heartbreak. But he stood, brushed off his pants, and walked away without another word. Deborah sank back to her knees, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the garden trowel. She'd done the right thing. She'd protected herself. So why did it feel like she was dying inside? That evening, Taewoo cornered her again. This time in the laundry room, late, when the rest of the staff had gone to bed. She was folding sheets, trying to lose herself in the mindless repetition. When the door opened and closed behind her, she didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Go away, Taewoo. Not until you listen to me. I don't want to hear it. She kept folding, kept her back to him. Whatever you're going to say, I don't want to hear it. My brother came to you today. Not a question. Yes. And I told him the same thing I'm telling you. Leave me alone. She heard him move closer, felt the heat of his body behind her. He apologized, didn't he? Told you he was selfish. Promised you it could work. His accuracy made her hands still. How did you? Because that's Miho's specialty. The gentle approach. The emotional manipulation disguised as honesty. There was bitterness in his voice. He makes you feel like he's the good brother. The one who cares. The one who'll protect you. Deborah turned to face him finally. And what's your specialty? Intimidation. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Honesty. Real honesty. Not the pretty version my brother sells. Then be honest. Why did you do it? Why pursue me when you knew Jinwoo was already? She couldn't finish the sentence. Because he doesn't deserve you. The words came out fierce, certain. He wants to save you. To be your hero. It's what he does. He finds broken things and fixes them. The description stung because there was truth in it. And you? What do you want? His eyes locked on hers, dark and intense. You. Simple. Direct. Not some version of you. Not a project. Just you. Complicated, messy, real. Her breath caught. This was worse than Jinwoo's apology. Because this felt true in a way that terrified her. I can't do this. I can't choose between you. Then don't. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Choose yourself. Walk away from both of us. Is that what you want? His smile was bitter. What I want doesn't matter. What matters is what you need. He dropped his hand and stepped back, giving her space. But before he left, he paused at the door. Know this, Deborah. My brother will let you go if you ask him to. He'll sacrifice his feelings for your happiness. He turned to face her fully. I won't. Then he was gone. And Deborah was left alone in the laundry room, surrounded by clean white sheets that felt like surrender flags. She sank onto a bench, her head in her hands, and tried to figure out how her life had become this complicated. Two men. Two different kinds of love. Both of them offering her something. Neither of them offering everything she needed. And the worst part? She still wanted them. Both of them. Even knowing it was impossible, even knowing it would destroy her, she still wanted them. What was wrong with her? The answer came 3 days later, delivered with the brutal efficiency of 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Deborah stared at it until her vision blurred, until the lines seemed to multiply and dance. Pregnant. 6 weeks, maybe. Could be 5. Her mind raced through the timeline, trying to calculate, trying to figure out which encounter had resulted in this. But the dates overlapped too much. She'd been with Jinwoo 7 times. Taewoo 6. The timing made it impossible to know for certain without a test. 1 baby. 2 possible fathers. 2 brothers who'd already destroyed her life without meaning to. Her hands moved to her stomach, still flat, still unchanged. But inside, a life was growing. Half hers. Half whose? A sob broke from her throat. She'd been so stupid. So reckless. They'd used protection most of the time, but not always. Not in those desperate moments when desire overrode caution. Not when she'd thought she was falling in love with 1 man instead of 2. Now she was going to pay for it. They all were. She couldn't run. She had no money beyond her meager savings, no family in Korea, nowhere to go. She couldn't hide it forever. Eventually, her body would betray her, and everyone would know. Which meant she had to tell them. But how? How do you tell 2 men, 2 brothers who already had a complicated relationship, that you're carrying a child that could belong to either of them? Deborah spent 3 days agonizing over it. 3 days of morning sickness and terror and spiraling thoughts. 3 days of watching her world crumble, while trying to maintain a facade of normalcy. On the 4th day, she made a decision. She would tell Jinwoo first. Not because she loved him more, though she didn't know if she could even separate her feelings anymore. Not because she thought he'd react better, but because she trusted him to not react with anger. She needed gentleness right now, even if it was a lie. She needed someone to tell her it would be okay. Even if they both knew it wasn't true. She found him in the library. Of course. That's where it had all started, with a borrowed book and a kindness that had felt like sunlight. He looked up when she entered, surprise and hope flashing across his face. Deborah. She closed the door behind her, her hands shaking. I need to talk to you. He stood immediately, concern replacing hope. Are you all right? You look. I'm pregnant. The words fell between them like stones, heavy and irreversible. Jinwoo went completely still, his face going blank with shock. What? I'm pregnant, she repeated, her voice steadier this time. 6 weeks. Maybe 5. I don't know exactly. His eyes searched hers, and she saw the moment realization hit. The moment he understood what she couldn't say directly. You don't know which one of us. No. Her voice broke on the word. I don't know. Hello, buddy. You don't want to miss a single second of what's coming up. But before we dive into what happened next, and so you don't miss any of the twists, turns, and intense moments that set the stage for all the drama unfolding now, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop the next story. You definitely don't want to miss what's coming next.